Well, hi everyone. Welcome to our webinar this afternoon. So lots of people joining us as we've done the last few days. So great to see so many people joining us again. So today we're talking to Alex Frost from the CEO of the Tote Group, and we'll be asking him lots of questions about the role of the Tote. And I'm hoping Alex is going to be able to join us now. Alex, can you hear me? Not at the moment. Alex, can you hear me okay? I'm just connecting up to audio. Great. Alex, can you hear me? Let's just get him unmuted.
There we go. Yeah.
Great. Perfect. Good. Well, great to have you on board. Good. Well, I'm glad that technology's worked. Always good to see our panelists here. So that's great. So we've got lots of people joining us at the moment. So just say a quick hello to some of the people that are joining. I'm just having a look at my other screen here to see who we've got. So we've got Rodney and Anne Hayward, fresh from doing their busy jigsaw of the Foxtrot Party. Chris, you've joined us. You've got David and Sarah joined us. David Nichols. Deborah Clayton, Jackie Daly, Judith, Les, Julia, Martin Prince, hello to you, Mary, Michael Keating from Ireland, Matthew Farrar, I think you might know him, Alex.
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
Phil Chappell, Phil King, Sue Smith, Rodney Hayward, I know you've been very busy recently. Who else have we got? Tony Bird, you've joined us. So lots and lots of people getting involved. Adele Brown, welcome to you as well. So lots of people flying in to join us. So that's great. So while we're just waiting for other people to join, let me just explain how this is going to work. So first of all, if you've got any questions for Alex, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So you can click on that and just type in any questions. And what I'll do is I'll read those out to Alex and ask him those. So any questions at all, just type in any Q&A at the bottom of your screen. So one thing you may have noticed is during our webinar week this week, I've been visiting various different locations. Today, I'm at a brand new race course. So I wonder if you can guess. I was told yesterday's was far too easy. So I've made today's a little bit more challenging. I will give you a clue later on as to where I might be, but I'll be very impressed if you can guess it. It is somewhere that Foxtrot recently had a runner. So hopefully you'll be able to work out where I am today on my tour of British racecourses. So we're just coming up to 3 o'clock. So we'll start with Alex in a second, but we're just getting lots and lots of people still joining us. So I'm just waiting for people to log in. I can see lots of people waiting to get involved. So people coming in all the time. Brilliant. Well, it's gone 3 o'clock out, so let's get going. And if I can sort of kick off, as it were, just by asking you how you are in terms of lockdown, you know, safe, well, family, all well, and how are you finding things sort of personally?
That's very kind of you to ask. I mean, we're very fortunate, as much as we live on a stud here. So I'm looking out to see hopefully some future winners stacked in the field somewhere. So yeah, very, very fortunate, feel very lucky in that respect. And weirdly, it's from a personal perspective, very nice to spend time with my kids who I've never seen enough of. And it's slightly, the caveat to that is, you know, school terms are starting virtually. So it's definitely, I think we're all figuring out kind of different ways of getting by at the moment.
Brilliant. Well, we really appreciate you joining us because we know you're exceptionally busy with things. And actually then, you know, before we get on to the Tote Group, you mentioned about the breeding, and I'd be really interested to sort of learn a little bit more about your own background, your sort of upbringing, how you got into racing, and also the sort of breeding side that you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, so my granddad was very into it. He was very lucky in his horse ownership, something I sort of lived in a shadow of in terms of my participation, but he had a horse at what was the champion miler in the 60s called Rome Rocket, who won the Sussex Stakes and St James Palace and that sort of thing. My dad is still a small-time breeder and shares quite a few of the horses here. So no, I've always had horses with Henry Candy on the flat, again, very sort of low budget, but a lot of fun. I've always enjoyed being parts of syndicates with lots of good friends, and jumps as well has been a big thing. So I breed horses in Ireland with a friend of mine called Harry Fowler, who's Jesse's, better known as Jesse's nephew. And yeah, we've had our own little bits of success. We've got a very good mare at the moment called Tote, who I hope will be giving us a bit of fun next year. But yeah, lots of breeding. I've always loved the breeding side. I think that's it's horribly uncommercial, but when it does work out, it's pretty difficult to beat.
So Polytest, is that the right name? Where should we look out for that name?
Well, she won, talk about the right name, pronouncing Thurles, but she won at Thurles the weird ITV day. She won her novice hurdle that day, she was third punch down bumper last year, then second at the Dublin Festival this year, and then won her bumper after that, and then won impressively over hurdles. So yeah, hopefully she's definitely pretty good. So we're talking about big things at the moment, but they're easy to do, as you know, right now.
It's part of the fun, isn't it? The planning and so on.
The reality isn't quite so good, but no, she could be very, very decent. So she's very exciting. Yeah.
Great. Well, just a reminder to everyone, if you've got any questions for Alex, please just drop them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Alex, can we sort of move on to onto the Tote group? Obviously, the Tote group acquired in the pool betting from Betfred last October, and can you just sort of explain first of all, how did that come about?
Yeah, so my background is trading markets, and I always, having been a racing nut all my life, I was very keen to see how the Tote could better work with racing. So it's always a point of intrigue for me, and seeing how pools evolved in markets and how dominant they became. It just became a bit strange watching the demise of the UK pool. So while the world, both in terms of capital markets and in terms of horse racing, was being dominated by pools, just felt the UK Tote was an outlier. So I'd always promised my wife I would leave the trading floor when I hit the ripe old age of 40, having done it for 20 years. And then just set out with a ridiculous dream to do this with a bunch of guys who I thought were sort of, very knowledgeable in this area. And then we got some financial backing from people who know a lot more than we do. And we've spent 4 years getting to this point. So we completed the transaction in October last year, having raised over 100 million to do it, with a financial model, hopefully, that we think will if it does get backing and support domestically, could be very, very effective in bringing prize money up to a sensible level where syndicates like yourselves can have a sort of Australia effect and enjoy something a little bit more robust in terms of economic backdrop within the sport.
So you mentioned there about sort of other people. Can you just give us an idea of what sort of other people are involved in this? Are they racing people, business people? Yeah. What's the sort of background to them?
So in reality, it's 180 people. So it's people like Cheveley Park. It's people like racing. That we've got 9 studs who are involved in various ways. We've got some very high-profile owners like the Niarchos family as big supporters. We tried to branch out sort of internationally. So we brought in the China Horse Club in a small way. They own 7%. So it's trying to give ourselves a really, so the cut and thrust of it is everyone has to be as obsessed about horse racing as we are. I think to do that and to see through the longevity of the investment, that was crucial. And to understand the politics, which are, no private equity company, I don't think would ever want to understand racing's politics and economics at the moment. So to see through that was important. And then to actually open up doors for us and bring a global and sort of ambitious perspective to this, I think we needed a very sort of thoughtful and well-informed investor.
So I suppose one thing that I've often wondered, and I'm sure you'll be able to answer this, is a lot of betting now is done with bookmakers. A lot of us bet on our phones. Does pool betting, does it really have a future?
Yeah, no, so definitely something given a bit of thought to. I mean, I think it's the starting point for us is if you add up all the global pool, it's over 100 billion. So, and that is growing. So globally, yes, the UK is the big quandary. And I think as a punter, I know I'd like to have a bet. I wouldn't be a big stakes player, but I do enjoy a bit of value, and I enjoy participation in the betting side of it. It's part of the thrill, really, isn't it? So I've just found in my betting experience that things have got incredibly narrow, and I think your range of prices in the morning is pretty narrow. It's definitely narrow around the off, and I think where the totes become very uncompetitive is that with a big takeout and not much depth in the pool, it's not a very attractive proposition, and the digital offering is, well, certainly was appalling. We think we're getting to a place now where we're just launching our app in 6 weeks' time, where you could have a really, really good racing well, we are the only niche racing offering in the entire market. So it's to your point, it's on the face of it, it's not attractive at all. But I think where you can, the idea that people, have a lot of, if you're good right now, you get accounts closed down. Ken Alexander rather amusingly said the other day that 99% of his customers are losing customers for GVC, which implies that, if you're a winning customer, you get closed down, and if not, you get a load of special offers thrown at you. And I just think there's an opportunity here for a relevant tote. I don't think we ever have any aspirations or sort of realistic ambitions to dominate things by any stretch of imagination, but just to offer clients, punters, the industry, an alternative whereby you've got a sort of strong engine that can reward the sport financially as well, a Camelot type organisation that can sit alongside fixed odds. Our biggest clients at the moment are fixed odds bookies who distribute the play spot, distribute the jackpot. So the two sit in unison. There's not much rivalry.
You mentioned there about sort of international opportunities. Could you sort of expand on that a little bit and what you mean by that?
Yeah, so weirdly, just talking, going back to the original question, what we've been doing during the lockdown. So professionally, the Tote has been, we've actually been a net employer of people throughout the lockdown, which seems bizarre for a UK facing business. So about 50% of our business is UK. To your point about international has exploded in terms of the need to do deals with all other jurisdictions. That's to say, what have we done? So we've commingled with South Africa, with Sweden. We've done, we're very, very busy today in Hong Kong. We've set up a UK based Hong Kong play spot, which ultimately will commingle with Hong Kong. So we're working away with all the global participants to basically enable what happened at Royal Ascot last year to happen on a daily basis. I.e., you can bet into the UK pool from a number of jurisdictions around the world, which is to us interesting in the sense that that increases the richness of the pool, the depth of the pool, but also I think it will induce pricing that is interesting as well. Do you know what I mean? So, you look at, there's some weird things that happened in the World Pool last year where, because a lot of the money coming in was from Asia. So I think it was when, correct me if I'm wrong, but when Japan beat Bangkok in the King Edward VII, I think that was the right result. But that forecast paid 6-4, whereas the industry return was about 20-1. But the rest of the pool obviously was skewed. So you had the second favourite to beat the third favourite was something like 50 to 1. Do you know what I mean? So you just get some really interesting dynamics. And I think, to me, the sport is going more and more global. And the intrigue, you look at Hong Kong, the international races in Hong Kong are now the big races. They used to be totally irrelevant when it came to the pool. So typically Hong Kong turns over about 25 million Hong Kong dollars a race. And the international races were only about 5 million Hong Kong dollars. Now those international races are the big races. They're about 40, 50 million Hong Kong dollars in terms of the pool. So you see how people, with the advancement of technology, are becoming much more interested, much more educated with the global racing scene rather than just their immediate domestic racing. So I think the globalization of this, I think, sits very well with hopefully where the sport is going more generally. And when you guys have your international superstar going around the world, I'm sure you're well informed. It's kind of like the buzz you get in Japan with all the screens and the information around the race and where the money is going and all the permutations you can have, I think is something that rich data we can really bring here.
Some of the figures you mentioned there are quite incredible, and certainly there's incredible markets, particularly sort of in the Far East. But going back home, are there any changes that our members might see on the race course, on a typical Tuesday at Worcester? Are there any fundamental changes that they're going to notice when they go racing?
Yeah, so just very basic stuff. I mean, candidly speaking, the Tuesday at Worcester is the challenge, because liquidity and interest in that meeting, we can't just stand there and make fixed odds prices and make it attractive by virtue of just what we propose. We're requiring everyone to come together in a pool, which is very easy at Cheltenham. Cheltenham was, gangbusters, and those that went there would have seen a different Tote engagement, different branding, and the Tote guarantee and so on. So what will you see at Worcester? I think you're definitely going to see a new brand launch there, which will just be, just better booths and a better, hopefully, wagering experience. I think hopefully staff are much more enfranchised and much more enthusiastic about what they're selling. I think the Tote guarantee is a really nice functionality in the sense that you can never be beaten by SP. So it just, hopefully it's a step up from, I totally appreciate it's a low level, and as well, hopefully there's a very strong message there that, a chunk of what you put on will go to the racing cause in one way, shape or form.
I remember filling in those Tote place pot forms where you got little lines where you've got to fill in, and occasionally you'd fill it in the wrong section, and then you'd have to start the whole form again. If you do anything, I hope those are going to be updated. Yeah,
the problem we got is that the on-course experience is managed by BritBet, which is the complexity of everything. But exactly right. I mean, we are coming from the dark ages. Let's be pretty clear. The only way is up.
So, Alex, you mentioned BritBet there. Can you just explain what BritBet actually is?
So the level of animosity between Fred Doan, the previous owner of the Tote, and the Tote itself, and him representing the Tote itself, and racing, everyone had fallen out. This kind of, dare I say, won't surprise you, somebody who understands and follows sport so closely. And the point of no return was the race courses wanting to set up their own pool. The problem the race courses had was that they were only 15% of a very small pool. So the opportunity for punters to bet into that was very, very small. And hence that's where we came in. We brought everybody together. It was a fairly long drawn, to a point, not overly pleasant journey to bring everybody together. But that's where we are now. And the deal is they run the race course retail piece, and it's a franchise deal. So they're the Pizza Express. They run the distribution on course, where we provide the product and everything in the background.
So, for example, one of our questions is about the location of, I suppose, tote kiosks, if you like, on the racecourse. Would that be your responsibility or someone else's?
It's their responsibility, BritBet. So it's really the course in conjunction with BritBet are responsible for where that booth goes. What we are trying to do is just trying to make that experience a better one for all concerned. I hope at Cheltenham people had a marginally better experience they did the previous year, those that went. But wherever you go, hopefully things are moving the right direction. But and on the basis that you're not going to have any on-course participation really until Q4 this year, it's there's lots that needs to be done between now and then to make that a better sort of experience for people. And I think arguably you're going to see less cash betting on course generally after what's happened.
So we've had another question that we've had from Julia Raymond, and she talks about the PMU in France, obviously helping to fund racing over there. Is it possible for the Tote to benefit racing here in a similar way?
Yes, it's a really good question, and it's exactly where we come at this from. I mean, we feel very, very strongly that there's a funding mechanism the Tote can just spin off capital into. So the PMU make 1.5 billion euros a year. Okay, we make, tuppence halfpenny in comparison. We make around 10 million. So exactly Julia, exactly to her point, that funds French racing. I think that's why you're going to see French racing return incredibly quickly, because the underlying sport can't fund itself. It's a broken model, kind of to a point like ours is, but it requires immediate subsidy from the PMU. So within that 1.5 billion, the trotting take, the government take half to start off with, so it's a great deal for the government. So they take 700 odd million. Then the balance gets split between the trotting and the thoroughbred racing. So if you compare that to our levy contribution, so levy wherever you draw the line is somewhere between 50 and 70 at the moment. Their funding is whatever it is, 5 times that. And France has 200 racetracks, but it's like us, it has a concentration of 20, 30 sort of big tracks. But exactly to her point there, and I hope people kind of saw it in the virtual national even. I know it's a bizarre example, but when you do put a chunk in, you have a good experience, everyone walks away like a Camelot type experience, and hopefully you can match that up with some of the take going back into the sport, which we all love dearly.
Yeah. I think that's a crucial part of this, isn't it? It's trying to benefit racing. The Tote now being run by racing people and trying to benefit racing, and which in turn will benefit us as well as owners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just a question of, there's no point us presenting owners and all stakeholders a rubbish offering to say, here you are, stick your money in the Tote and that's the end of it. I think what we've got an obligation to make sure it's a really good experience. Do you know what I mean? So hopefully things like the 10 to follow this year. We want to set up sub leagues so you guys can have a really fun sub league, and you can all put, we can do innovative stuff around your own horses. I think that sort of thing is really enjoyable. We just presented a winner with 180 grand check for the jump season. We had over 100 winners. That was a really good engagement that we've all grown up enjoying, I think. And then it's just making sure the exotics are, the play spot's really fun. It's really interactive. And, to us, there should be an opportunity to participate, on a Saturday in 10 jackpots around the world that, you put £1, £2 in and you have a chance to win £1 million. I mean, the deal we've done with Sweden, their jackpot last weekend was 15 million quid for what they call the V75, 15 million. That, their racing is very small compared to ours. And so you can kind of see how, if we do get this set up effectively with a really good, engagement and good customer experience, and good digital experience, which I think is the way, that's clearly the way the world's going. We've got a chance, and we brought a lot of smart people. You'll be relieved to see it's not me running this. you know, a lot of, like Matt as well, in fact, you know, so guys he's worked with at Ladbrokes, we've got an array of people from William Hill, Skybet. I think the fact that they've all come across to the Tote hopefully is deeply reassuring.
We saw Matt running around at Weatherby, so
So did I.
the idea
So
of
did
intelligence and Matt doesn't quite fit together, but take your word for that.
That was a great day.
So that was Maracuja winning for those of the weren't involved with that syndicate. So if you've got any questions for Alex, please just type them into the Q&A box at the bottom. We've had a question from Phil Chappell. When I bet on my Racing Post app, can I choose the Tote to bet with?
So again, this is a really good question, and this is kind of where the relevance of the Tote needs to come through. The answer is no, not at the moment, but going forward, absolutely. But it's what we can't do is ask people to change their habits too far unless it's a blowout good product. But I bet through the Racing Post app, and it's fantastic. I like to see the form. I like to, you know, have the content that the Racing Post offers. But it's up to us now to, you know, get big enough to engage with them. But that's happening at the moment. So hopefully to come is the answer.
And another question, just without a name from, but if the Tote is generating money for racing, can you explain who decides how that money is spent? Is it the Tote, or does it go into another pool to be decided by someone else?
Yeah, it's again a good question. I mean, it's a political hot potato. Who does what with any cash in racing? Obviously, we'd pass it all on to you guys if we were given the choice, but. No, right now, the current situation is the money goes to BritBet, which is then distributed in a fixed model across all race courses. That's the 50 million quid we're giving over 7 years as a guarantee, and hopefully we get much higher than that. On top of that, we have a levy contribution. So by virtue of how successful we are, we have an incremental chunk that goes into the levy pot. And then on top of that, we're doing other contributions for various projects. We've already proposed in the midst of what looks like a prize money crisis, and how we can, the dream ticket is you get a fixed percentage of the pool going to connections. So you literally say, here's 1% which goes into connections of the winning or prize money orientated horses, which I think, you know, that's kind of the way the model works in Asia. And, you know, seeing Willie Haggis, or William Haggis as he prefers to be called, going down there and mopping up in Australia with 2 horses and picking up, 1.5 million in prize money, you know, for pretty, you know, they were some listed Group 3 horses really. You know, it just shows the gulf in prize money and how effective the Australian pool is.
Yeah, very interesting. We've had another question, which probably, just looking at the time, might be our last one. Chris Petts would like to know, can you bet on other sports through the Tote? And if so, does money generated from other sports go back into racing or elsewhere?
Yeah, it's a proposal we've got on the table at the moment, and it's something we need to square off as to whether we just make this. You know, I think what we're trying to do at the moment is make sure we get the racing piece right and our core offering and engage the racing audience right. I think, you know, it's quite sort of notable that Racing UK can't get beyond 61,000 subscribers. And when RMG took on Ireland, you know, their subscribers literally went from 47 to 61,000, you know, pretty short order, and then just plateaued there immediately. It does feel as though the racing audience is quite niche, and I think, you know, the demographic is a challenge, isn't it? It's, you know, like you find, I guess, and I imagine when you're trying to get new people on board in terms of your teams, you know, we could really do with, you know, a few more Matt Farrars, you know, a few more younger folk coming through, and, you know, other sports are a great cross sell for that. We've done a big partnership with the Sun, so we're working very closely with them to try and attract a different audience into racing. We've done partnerships with kind of, you know, Talk Sport, so currently there's commentary on the Hong Kong racing on Talk Sport. So we believe very strongly we should be broadening the church that is racing. The Racing Post, I think, what is it? It's got 40,000 subscribers. These are very, very set numbers. You don't generally see racing niche products get much beyond 60, 70,000. So in answer to the question, we've got to broaden our product suite. I mean, currently you can bet on tracks from all over the world, but we've clearly got to look at other sports. But I think what we'd like to have on the website going forward is racing 24/7 from all around the world with really good content. I think when you watch US racing, it's almost unwatchable at the moment because there's no content to it. There's no context to where the horses come from. And they look pretty miserable as they're going around those tracks anyway. So really trying to be that really good niche go-to content piece for racing around the world, and then adding on other sports. In answer to your question, I don't actually know how we're going to frame the funding that comes out of football, which is clearly something we're looking at, or other sports. Whether we just literally go football, here you are, here's 5p in the pound to grassroots football as an option as well, and you just set that model across, cricket, etc., etc.
No, very interesting. But I think what's very clear, Alex, is your heart's in the right place, and a huge amount of work is being done for the benefit, certainly of racing initially. And I think we all ought to be very grateful for the hard work and no doubt financial interest that you've put into it as well.
Nice.
I'm afraid we've run out of time today, but can I just say a huge thank you very much for joining us. The idea was to get a range of people during our webinar week from very different parts of the industry. And I must say, when I contacted you, I thought, well, I'll be lucky if you've got the time to speak to us. And I'm very grateful that you've given up so much of your time to prepare, but also talk to us today.
Thanks very much. No, very honoured, and best of luck. I'll be cheering your horses on, including Maracuja. Take care.
Alex, thank you very much indeed. Just for everyone else, don't forget we've got a few other events coming up. So we've got the Foxtrot Party this evening at 7:30. So if you've not signed up for that, make sure you do. Tomorrow we've got Jamie Snowden talking to us at 12 o'clock. We've got Ben Brain talking to us at 5 o'clock. And I think that's going to be fascinating, talking about breathing operations. Really looking forward to that tomorrow. Now, where am I today? I've moved up to Kelso, so well done to those that got Kelso. Lots of guests of Southall, Market Raisin, but today I'm in Kelso. So see where I am tonight at the Foxtrot Party. Anyway, very good to see everyone. Thanks very much indeed for tuning in, and hopefully we'll catch up with some of you this evening, or if not, tomorrow. Thank you.